I just put us into the green room. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. live here from Roscoe's Coffee Bar and Tap Room for the Brendan Evans Show. Brendan Evans alongside Erik LaFuse. Super excited to be here tonight. Should be a good show so far, Erik.
Yeah, that's right, Brendan. We got a lot of good stuff in it, a lot of interesting stuff coming up. Got some big news, I think, heading into next week. We're gonna try to take on a new show. Try a little something new for the wrestling fans out there going into WrestleMania weekend.
Right, and we'll talk a little bit more about that going later on as well. Really quick, I do want to mention, like I said, we do have a lot more coming in later on. We got some big announcements and stuff as well. Let's talk a little bit first with what kind of our weekend looks like next week. So we're possibly going to have a show rating around, like he mentioned, the wrestling fans, possibly going to have a show wrestling around wrestling, of course, with WrestleMania weekend, of course. Right. And then we'll obviously have our regular show. And then next Monday is finally the day, opening night for the Cincinnati Reds against the Cubs. They're coming into town to play the Reds at Great American Ballpark. Me and Erik will be there alongside Courtney and Melissa, our winners for our first ticket giveaway. So I'm super excited for that. So that's our first ticket giveaway with many, many more to come. I'm very excited. We get to travel up there with them, kind of see how the game goes. Hopefully the Reds get off to a hot start this season.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the forecast is not looking good for us. So hopefully they get 3 hours of dry weather in there. Forecast currently is calling for thunderstorms.
Well, last time,
hopefully we'll get some dry weather in there for at least 3 hours.
What was it? Last season or the season before, we went to a game. We drove all the way to Cincinnati. We paid for parking. We walked all the way to the stadium, and literally as we are going through security, they canceled the game and tell us we're not even allowed to walk in. So, what was that? Last season or the season before when Cincinnati played Pittsburgh?
That was the season before in September. It was kind of a late game. We actually a replacement game to that we went to. They actually gave us like front row seats because there wasn't enough people that showed up because they moved it to a day game. So, and then we went to Raw after that. So
that was pretty cool.
It actually worked out really well for you as a wrestling fan. We walked up and Raw's sitting there. It was a long day in Cincinnati.
Very long day. So, I was tired. May or may not have slept on the way home, but that's neither here nor there.
Right. So
to kind of go back into their show of what we have planned today, we do have a pretty packed show. So we're going to go ahead and get into the sports talk of things. Jerry Green, a Detroit sports writer, he had covered 56 consecutive Super Bowls. He unfortunately has passed away. That the Detroit News had actually shared that on Friday.
Yeah, passed away at the age of 94. They didn't say what from, but at 94, I would probably just assume old age at that point. Very sad to hear. Big loss for Detroit. Big loss for the NFL. But great history there, something to be celebrated. Had a long life. Can't be too upset or disappointed, I guess.
Right.
Loss of life is always bad, but at 94, that's a pretty good run, I feel like. So
especially covering 54 Super Bowls with as big as the NFL is. That's
56.
56. Yeah, that's huge. That's a very long, fulfilled life, very full life. So nothing. Obviously, this is sad news, but good news at the same time. So the Panthers, they have the first-round draft pick now, traded over to Chicago with a bunch of draft picks, and then also DJ Moore. So Carolina now has the first-round draft pick. So they did spend Wednesday and Thursday at the pro days for the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks of the NFL draft, C.J. Stroud and Alabama's Bryce Young. So C.J. Stroud, obviously from Ohio State. So the two players did move up in the draft to have a shot, or they did move up in the draft to have the shot at either quarterback, whichever they want. They really have the chance to mold their quarterback to go, this is going to be our future. So, these draft days, anyone could throw. Most people could throw a pro day. Yeah. So you really. You can't get too much from a pro day, but at the same time, it's very important to attend when you have as much writing on this as the Carolina Panthers do.
And I know the Colts have attended a lot in the past couple of weeks too. They're showing interest in BYU's Jaron Hall. Peyton Manning's giving advice to Will Levis, so that'll be interesting to see out of Kentucky. And then another big thing about the Colts is they signed Isaiah McKenzie from the Bills. But, yeah, it definitely interesting for Carolina. They've made a lot of moves, so whoever's going to go there is going to go with a stacked team. They added Chark. They added Thielen. They have the running back Miles Sanders. They have the tight end. They added the tight end Hayden Hurst from the Bengals. So that should take a lot of pressure off of a new quarterback. And at the same time, I've read a lot about the Colts. So just talking about the draft, and since we're in Indiana, talking about the Colts real quick. I didn't have a lot down for them this week, but they are not looking at Lamar Jackson as a free agent signing. I don't think they have the cap for it. They are still looking to sign a rookie quarterback out of the draft.
I don't think you can necessarily count them out at the same time, though. So I'd be interested to hear your opinion on that and exactly where that's coming from, because I understand where you're coming from, going to the draft, getting a young quarterback that you can hopefully mold into your starting position. But at the same time, how do you walk away from someone like Lamar Jackson, who realistically has, 7, 8, 10 years of very good football left, a former league MVP? How do you even step away from that and say you're not interested anymore?
I simply just don't think they have the cap. The Colts are not in a position where they are going to have the money. I mean, Lamar Jackson at this point can have whatever contract he wants, pretty much. He's going to go out there and he's going to ask for big money, and I don't think the Colts are going to be willing to pay it.
Well, let's be honest. If Lamar Jackson comes to Indianapolis, says, I will play in Indianapolis if you give me X, Y, Z. I'm sorry, but they better come up with X, Y, Z and twice over to get Lamar Jackson. The Colts, they're in trouble. They need something big. If they don't want to be in a rebuild again for another 10 years, they better get X, Y, Z and then some.
I mean, I guess that's a valid point, but like I said, I just don't think they have the money for it with Jonathan Taylor and some of the other contracts that they've signed recently, and bringing back some of the free agents that they've had bringing back in the past. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Well, let's not forget that they have gotten rid of a lot of cap space as well. Stephon Gilmore was probably the biggest cap hit that they were able to trade down to Dallas. So they have a ton of cap room now just from the trades and releases that they've made over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, that's true. That's true too. I just don't think it's feasible. I don't think Indianapolis is set up for the type of quarterback that Lamar Jackson is, honestly. I mean, they're not. I think that Indianapolis still wants to run on a very Peyton Manning, very much Andrew Luck pocket passer.
And in this league, and, we've seen it with Bill Belichick too, but, in this league you really need to – and Andy Reid's probably one of the more dominant coaches that have been able to do this. In this league, you have to be able to adapt and change styles to be able to win football games. And this goes all the way down to the high school level. You've got to be able to make changes, especially even if it is at halftime, if it's in-game changes. You got to be able to make those changes, adapt, overcome to the adversity. Sometimes, you may not be able to run the blur for the next 15 seasons because if you don't have a running quarterback, you can't run that type of playbook. So I think that the Indianapolis Colts, you got to remember their offensive coordinator their head coach was just the offensive coordinator from Philadelphia with Jaden Hurst as their quarterback. So, I think they have a lot of decisions that they need to make, but that really needs to be the top one of what is the Colts offense going to look like this year. And I think they need to be able to change, you don't have that deep threat anymore. I can't say how many times you've said that in the last few weeks. You don't need that deep threat if you can be a run first or short pass offense. And if they could get Lamar Jackson and some offensive linemen, the Indianapolis Colts, I think, could legitimately be one of the best running offenses in the league. They've got Jonathan Taylor, one of the most dominant running backs in the last 5 years since he was drafted in 2020. He was second-round pick, 41st overall, so he's not someone that came into the league with huge, huge expectations, but he is someone that can also come in and perform as well.
Sure, but the other part of it too, Brendan, is that who are the Colts going to trade for Lamar? He is technically signed to the Ravens. So who do the Colts trade for Lamar Jackson?
So really, all they have to do is offer Baltimore. The league says 2 first-round picks, but you can get around that as well with the non-exclusive franchise tag. So basically, the Colts could say, hey, I'm going to give you a first-round draft pick this year. The next year, I'm going to give you a second. And even on top of that, you can add conditional third-round picks. You can add, I think Indianapolis, they can afford to give up 2 first-round picks for someone like Lamar Jackson.
Sure.
They have the cap room. It's not like there's someone like, Los Angeles or San Francisco that doesn't have any draft picks at this point. Miami doesn't even have a draft pick this year in the first round. Cleveland doesn't have any draft picks left because of Deshaun Watson. So
the other question,
so you could give up 2 first-round picks to Baltimore. You say, hey, and then you're negotiating with Lamar Jackson at this point. You submit your dollar amount to Lamar Jackson. He says yes or he says no. If he says yes, the Baltimore Ravens have a chance to come in and say, hey, we'll match it, or no, see you later. Yep. Now, I don't see the Ravens saying, hey, we'll see you down the road, good luck, but at the same time, I didn't see them not signing him at this point either. So I think the Colts really need to get Lamar Jackson if they want a chance at winning anything in the next 5 years.
That might be the case. But the Colts are currently ranked number 31 out of 32 on the chart of teams that are going to be playoff contenders this year. So they're not ranked high at all.
And the biggest thing is their quarterback problem, coaching problem, and their quarterback problem, the coaching problem, and the play calling problem. Yeah. Now that Jeff Saturday is out, I think that you guys have an actual chance. The play caller now in Indianapolis just went to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. That's huge.
That's true.
Especially with a team like Philly that hasn't, had the best team over the last number of years. The last time they went to a Super Bowl, they were able to win it with Nick Foles. Carson Wentz was in the first half of the season. Nick Foles carried over. They win the Super Bowl. Cinderella story. They beat the Patriots, right? Mm-hmm. Anytime anyone beats the Patriots in that era, it was huge.
Right.
And, Nick Foles and Eli Manning were pretty much the ones to do it, right? So looking even further past that, they need to get it at that point. I think Lamar Jackson and the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts could fare well.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to note that the Colts haven't ruled it out, that they haven't shown any interest in it. That's why there's not a lot but speculation to talk about right now. It's because there's not a lot of evidence-based things going on around it. So it's hard to say what they're going to do or what's going to happen. This is just strictly our opinions. It's, coming from 2 people that aren't paid by Fox or CBS or wherever, or NFL.com.
What was your line?
I said, this is just coming from 2 people that aren't, paid by like a major newscast.
I was talking about your famous line, not sponsored yet.
Not sponsored yet.
Not sponsored yet.
Yes. So, like I said, it's important to note that they're not looking into it currently, but there's no sign saying that they're not going to look into it. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. And it might very well depend on who the Panthers take in the draft. If the Colts then look for a trade during the draft, I don't know. We'll have to watch and see. Moving on from something that has a little bit more fact, Tom Brady, speaking of the Patriots, has acquired ownership stake in a WNBA team, the champion Las Vegas Aces. So that's interesting that Tom Brady is now involved in women's basketball. What do you think about that?
So you see a lot of players that, retire, they go in, they get ownership in something else that's maybe not up to the par of what they were in, right? So, maybe some minor league teams, some cactus leagues, stuff like that that's not necessarily professional, but at the same time it's their own thing to where they can, get in there, make some changes, but really just have their name on it. We've seen Michael Jordan do that. There was a big conference last week on that between you and I, over Michael Jordan with the Hornets and his ownership, about to step down from ownership, it sounds like.
He also owns Michael Jordan also owns a little bit of NASCAR, some NASCAR teams. too. So,
Right.
I mean, that's kind of
Right.
cool.
And then John Elway, he owns the Denver Broncos. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me, but I'm surprised he went with women's basketball instead of going for, like a some other maybe basketball team of another stature. Maybe not professional, but again, like AAU or something like that. Somebody like that could definitely buy out AAU.
Sure, absolutely. Also, in other news, the Jets have traded Elijah Moore to the Browns. Elijah said that route running is his best attribute. As for compensation, the New York Jets will receive the number 42 overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft in exchange for Moore, while also sending a number 74 overall back to Cleveland. And this is also as they signed Jets, they signed McCole Hardman, who was a former Kansas City Chief, obviously. But really, honestly, I think the Elijah Moore trade to the Browns was more about getting some more cap room and some more help in getting the Aaron Rodgers deal done with the Packers. Is pretty much what's been noted as far as I've seen. Still going on pretty strong with that and trying to get Aaron Rodgers to sign with them. As we know, Aaron Rodgers is either going to play for the Jets this year or probably ride the bench for Green Bay, I would imagine.
Or just flat out retire. I don't see him retiring, though. I think at some point he will be probably fined, but he's going to get paid if he doesn't show up.
Yeah.
I don't see him showing up doing anything without getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a contract right now, so he'll stay and at least get paid.
Without playing, sorry.
Without playing, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I meant.
Absolutely.
I don't see him doing anything for someone who isn't going to be playing him.
Yeah, absolutely. Some other things to note from football, and you can pipe in if you want on these, Brendan. Javon Hargrave, defensive tackle, signed with the San Francisco 49ers. Orlando Brown, an offensive tackle, signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. James Bradbury, a cornerback, re-signed with Philadelphia. Jesse Bates, a safety, signed with the Atlanta Falcons. Jacoby Myers from the Patriots signed with Las Vegas Raiders. And one of the people that Brendan is close with, a former Steeler, Juju Smith-Schuster, signed with the New England Pats. Still available is Odell Beckham.
Well, not only Juju Smith-Schuster, Javon Hargrave is a former Steeler as well. So
Yes.
Loved Hargrave, loved him when he was in Pittsburgh. I think he'll do well no matter where he goes. Juju Smith-Schuster signing with the Patriots, obviously that's going to stir up some trouble. Not sure if Pittsburgh plays the Patriots this season. I'd have to check. That's probably something that I should know. But I'm definitely excited. I think a game against Juju Smith-Schuster would be fun at this point. But if he dances on the logo, someone's going to kill him. That's basically where that's at.
Okay. Yeah, not good to dance on the logo. That's a little insulting, but still available is Odell Beckham Jr.
T.O. could tell you that. Terrell Owens from the 49ers when he was there back in the 90s tried to dance on the put the ball on the star of the Cowboy Stadium, and he got rocked right in the ear hole, got planted.
Yeah, disrespect definitely runs deep. Yannick Ngakoue. I'm sorry, I butchered that name. He's an edge rusher. He's still available. Javion Clowney is still available as an edge rusher, and Rock Johnson is available still as a cornerback. So lots of still room. Those are just the top 5 that are still available. There's lots more that are available for free agency, but those were the most notable ones that I could see.
Really quick, it is worth noting the Patriots do play the Steelers this season. That'll be in Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh, PA. So Juju Smith-Schuster coming back to Pittsburgh, where he was drafted from out of, I believe it was USC he was drafted out of. So he'll be back in Pittsburgh for that game.
Possibly to dance on the logo.
Hopefully not. I would hate to have to burn a jersey this season.
Oh, yeah. that would be bad. Definitely don't want to burn jerseys.
Right. But, and you had a few more on that list, didn't you, as well?
No, that's it. That's all I got.
Okay.
For that.
Njoku, he definitely will find somewhere to go. I think
Sure.
Jadeveon Clowney, the further they go towards the season, the less their paycheck will end up being at the end of the day, just because that's how these things go. The longer you wait, the less you're going to be worth. Same thing with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers New York Jets trade. Everyone's saying they're probably going to wait till draft day. At this point, I'd hate to, but I'd have to agree, just for the simple fact that, we've already waited this long. I don't see them doing it anytime soon before it's beneficial for them. Because, if Green Bay wants to come out, if you're the Jets, what do you do? Because you're waiting on a quarterback, probably one of the greatest quarterbacks in this generation, in Aaron Rodgers, and the Jets need him, or they need a quarterback, because you have Zach Wilson right now. Zach Wilson has potential. I don't know if he's a starter right now. I don't think he is. Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't think they brought Joe Flacco back. Even if they did, they could probably release him, pick up some nobody from the XFL, and be just fine.
Right. So,
they've got a lot of options that they could do, but I don't blame them for waiting out for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. No, definitely not. I mean, you can MVP player.
Four-time
MVP player.
Twice back-to-back.
Has a lot of potential to still play, can still go. They have picked up a lot of people that he is familiar with, that he can play with, a lot of experienced guys that they could build a well-run offense around. One of his biggest problems this year was the wide receivers that were rookies and just getting them involved in a NFL scheme and the communication. So you probably won't have that with guys that they have there now. Michael Hardman, obviously Alan Lazard, and just some of those guys who have been there longer, who probably know Aaron Rodgers on a deeper level than the rookies did coming in. So it's just going to be interesting to see. There's still a lot that is waiting to happen. There's still a lot of speculation. I think there's a lot of conclusions that you can come to, or, a lot of, there's the mock drafts that are running right now, and everybody's speculating what happens with Aaron Rodgers, what happens with Lamar Jackson. And honestly, we don't have a lot of information about that right now on the show, because currently it's kind of the same old story, the same old thing that's been going on, still going on. There's not a lot of new news about it at this point. So I think it's just a hurry up and wait game at this moment, coming down to the line to see what happens. We're 4 days into free agency, where they can, because I think that started on Wednesday, right?
Correct.
So, I think there's just a lot still going on where things are going to change. I think one of the biggest things I saw all this week was there was a big news coming out about Ezekiel Elliott. I think he went actually to the Texans, I believe.
I don't think anything was actually done. I think there were rumors, because I did see at one point somebody mentioned Ezekiel Elliott coming back with Joe Burrow. Ezekiel Elliott imagined, or in a Bengals uniform. Sports Illustrated posted that a few days ago, if I'm speaking from memory correctly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was nothing actually done. Ezekiel Elliott running a 4.47 40-yard dash. That is actually huge for Ezekiel Elliott. He definitely has the resume. 30 games with 100 yards alone is pretty huge. Yeah. Not nearly as close to the fastest running back of all time, but he's somebody that you could put into the dirty situations on third down, get 2-3 yards if you need them. I don't know if he's necessarily a power running back, but he is somebody that you could use as a third down option.
Sure. And it's important to note that he has been released by the Cowboys after 7 seasons. So, he is legitimately a a free agent. He was set to get $16.7 million against the salary cap this year, with a $10.9 million non-guaranteed base salary. So just going to be interesting to see where he goes on to as well. A lot's going on in the NFL. We'll keep you posted. We'll keep going. Like to transfer into some basketball now, I believe.
Yeah, so trending on Twitter right now, it looks like LeBron James is actually coming back, playing for the first time in quite a bit with their game against the Bulls today. So pretty exciting news if you're a LeBron James fan, and if you're someone like me that could not care less about LeBron James. You could just get past this. That's totally okay. Gary Payton, Warriors play the first game since the trade from the Trailblazers. So the Warriors are playing the Timberwolves. Payton made his season debut in January after abdominal surgery in July. So something big with the Warriors there. They'll play the first game since the Gary Payton trade. So that's big news for him. So him and the Warriors take on the Trailblazers here. Golden State will not pursue a grievance against Portland Trailblazers after he missed all but 15 games during the 22-23 season. So that was kind of the biggest speculation there within that trade. Hey, did they know that the injury was this severe? Would the Golden State Warriors have even made the trade or even looked any more into it if they would have known that this could have been a thing?
Right. So, yeah.
And with the Warriors saying that the Blazers were not forthcoming about Peyton's injury and the severity of it, you could also file a grievance in the league. But with as much speculation as there is in this and everything, if this happened in real life, you could almost guarantee a lawsuit if you did this with real life stuff, with cattle or anything like that. So this could be huge if it was something outside of basketball. So I think that, kind of look at the NFL when Miami was interfering with the Tom Brady situation while he was still under contract with the Buccaneers. That's why they don't have any draft picks this year. They didn't trade them away. They lost them. So that's the big thing there. Should there be any speculation? Should there be any grievances filed?
Well, obviously, you have to know that he had surgery in July, and he's been out since January, so that's not a small thing. I think there is a little bit of just, hey, this is common sense. Obviously he had surgery on his abdominal, and then he's been out for, 6 months, 5 months. Obviously it was serious, and so I think there's a little common sense that plays into it. You should have probably known what was going on, and how bad he was injured. You have to do a little bit of research. You can't leave it all on the other team to just let you know, in my opinion. So that game is against, like you said, that game is against the Timberwolves, and yeah.
Another big thing, Austin Reeves will keep his starting job when LeBron James returns from injury. So we'll see how true that really is coming in. That comes from Bleacher Report, so we'll see exactly how that all falls through once that game starts between the Bulls and the Lakers later on today as well. So,
I can't. He's averaging 17.1 points, 5.7 assists per game for an undrafted player in his second season. I just can't see the Lakers benching him. He is a lot of the reason why the Lakers are still in contention for the playoffs.
Well, the thing is with basketball, you're not playing for a starting spot like you would if you were in football. So, he's the backup for LeBron James, but this is not Brock Purdy backup for Trey Lance. This is nothing like a situation like that would be, because you can still get time on the court if you're not a starter. there is a whole section in a stat line that, points off the bench or points from the bench. And that's huge because of how important bench players are in the game. If LeBron James could come out, score 60 points tonight, but if his bench doesn't score another 40, they may not win. So I think that it's still very important that, he may not start at the same position, but he still needs to be involved in the game plan. So, yeah, maybe they bench him. Maybe they bring him in 4 minutes later after the game starts. So I don't necessarily agree that they should not bench him, but at the same time, he does need to play. I will agree with you on that, but I'm going to have to take a different standpoint with you on the fact that he should be benched.
Sounds like you're defending LeBron James a little bit here. Brendan, what's up with that?
I don't like LeBron James. I don't. But I also have to acknowledge his greatness at this point because he is one of the best players in the league right now.
But you know what? I think there's something to be said. I mean, since Austin Reeves has started, the Lakers have gotten to 500. That is not somewhere they were at when LeBron was starting. Before LeBron went down, they were under 5. They had been under 500 since January. So I mean, at that point, I think there's something to be said about that. Honestly, I mean, if LeBron wasn't getting it done on the court since January, and they were almost out of contention. They're still could be out of contention. So I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about that too, and it's a respect issue also as well.
Well, at the end of the day, you are, like I just said, playing against one of the best players in this league right now with LeBron James. LeBron James has holds so many records in the NBA. It's stupid. So, coming off as, it's a respect thing, but again, you're also looking at someone who came in undrafted off the bench just to fill in for LeBron James. At that point, Lakers fans may have given up on playoff chances when he had gotten hurt and chose to sit down. But, I get the respect thing on that. But you're also playing it with LeBron James. So respect has to go two ways there.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I really think that, if this guy being on the court has helped you get to a place where you're at 500 finally, where you're in contention for the playoffs again. You haven't been in contention for the playoffs since January. LeBron James hasn't been hurt since January, has he? So, I mean, I think there's a lot to do with that. I don't know. I mean, if this guy is truly a guy that just lights a fire under everybody else to play harder, I think you keep him. I think you keep him starting and you bench LeBron. Have him come in as backup.
And I've said the last few weeks, I don't agree with LeBron James sitting down. I don't agree with him hurting himself just to play in the All-Star game. You cannot be injured before the All-Star game, play the All-Star game, and then be hurt the rest of the time. 2 months after the All-Star game. I have said that every single show probably since we've started the show. So not saying that it necessarily is the worst thing ever, but at the same time, this is something that needs to be fixed. But at the same time, it's LeBron James. I don't agree with the injury side of things. Yeah. I don't agree that he did sit for so long. But once he is able to play, if he's willing to play, if he's going to make you better, play him. Not saying you don't play the other guy. I'm not saying do not play Austin Reeves. That's not what I'm saying at all.
I understand that. But what I'm saying, where I'm coming from is, obviously Austin Reeves has been good for the team. Obviously. I mean, the stats say it. So my question is LeBron James at this point a cancer in that locker room?
I wouldn't necessarily call him a cancer because once they start winning, LeBron James is still involved in locker room climate. He's still in the building. He's still at the practice facility. He's still around the team. So I don't think that it's LeBron James bringing down the team. I think it's, Austin Reeves finally got a chance and he's bringing them up. Backing your point 100% there, I think Austin Reeves is bringing this team, making the Lakers better. But at the same time, if you have a chance to add LeBron James to a great squad, it makes them even better.
Okay.
Why be great or why be okay when you could be great? And I think that's what the Lakers could do with LeBron James, adding them to each other. They need to learn how to feed off of each other.
Sure.
If LeBron James needs to sit for 10 minutes or so, let's say he goes up for a layup, comes down, tweaks his ankle. God forbid, knock on wood, hope it doesn't happen. But at the same time, now you have someone to where you're not getting put out of contention. You don't lose hope.
Sure.
And that was the big thing with Steve Young and Joe Montana. Joe Montana, he sits on the bench for whatever reason. Out comes Steve Young. It's not that often that you get two Hall of Fame players side by side, and I think it's too early to say Austin Reeves is a Hall of Fame worthy player. But at the same time, you still have someone to feed off of LeBron James. You still have someone to feed off of Austin Reeves, and I think they need to work together, and I think that the Lakers will be great. I think they can make a legitimate playoff run, and I think if they keep playing the way they have been, if LeBron James makes the Lakers better, if Austin Reeves makes the Lakers better with LeBron James, I think that LeBron James has a legitimate chance at his first legitimate title in a very long time.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, I think that, with Austin Reeves, it's, you could say that you have probably a player who is ready to take the mantle for when LeBron James decides he's done and wants to retire. Austin Reeves could be that guy that steps in there and takes over for LeBron James. A Jordan Pippen situation, if you will, kind of deal, where you're going to have your next leader, your next all-star basketball player. But then again, Reeves is definitely quoted by saying that I would like to be here, but it is the NBA. NBA, though, it is a business. Unfortunately for me, I was not talented enough to come into the league at 18 or 19 years old, so a couple of contracts behind someone that is one and done. Anybody that says we don't play the game for money, to me, is lying. I feel like if you're not getting paid, I do not know if you would be here doing that. Obviously, everyone loves the game, but I want to make as much money as I can and be successful no matter where it is at. So that is also a big thing with him. He wants to be paid, which I'm not saying that he shouldn't be, but just, a little bit of just a statement to kind of show you where his mindset is. So probably focused on winning a title, getting a bigger contract. Brendan, do you want to move on, or do you want to take a break, sir?
So we did have one more thing that we needed to bring up, a couple more things for basketball that we wanted to bring up, and I'll take a break after here in just a second. I appreciate that, though. So Ben Simmons not expected to play again after a nerve impingement in his back. So the Nets are currently 7th in the Eastern Conference, 1.5 game out of 6th place, which is currently held by the Miami Heat. This is huge after the departure of Durant and Kyrie Irving. So the Nets are definitely in trouble. They are at risk of not being able to make the playoffs this year. Obviously, seasons ago, they made a huge trade for Irving, Durant, and James Harden. None of them three players are with the Nets anymore. Ben Simmons really the biggest threat that the Nets have, and now that Ben Simmons is out, where's your next threat coming from? So, again, going back to the Lakers, if they had that Austin Reeves to come up off the bench and, be able to perform, that's one thing. But we have not seen someone that's able to stand out and perform as well as Ben Simmons, even Austin Reeves has for the Lakers. So I'm definitely interested to see kind of what happens with that. To kind of segue with the Kyrie Irving thing, so Kyrie was getting booed by fans, said if the fans want to change places, then, hey, be my guest. So this quote came after the Mavericks being booed for blowing a 27-point lead to the Charlotte Hornets. And I think it's more important to mention, instead of just the Charlotte Hornets, the 4th worst team in the NBA, Charlotte Hornets as well.
Yeah, Coach Jason Kidd was quoted afterwards saying that they should have booed in the first quarter. So, I mean, even the coach is admitting that they played an awful game. So, definitely going to be interesting to see where the Mavericks go from there.
Right. And do you think this hurts Kyrie Irving as well, because he's set to be a free agent after this year? So, where does that kind of put him with that? And then also with the controversy due to his anti-vaccine viewpoints, does this make Kyrie Irving unplayable? Does he bring too much attention to the locker room like someone like Juju Smith-Schuster did for Pittsburgh?
I think it definitely – there's no doubt that the Nets probably traded him because of the bad press on the COVID. the COVID vaccine side of things. Getting rid of him, especially when you're in New York, a big city like in Brooklyn, a city where the vaccine was very popular, where they kind of tend to be more in a liberal standpoints of, and a better like a place of like vaccines and stuff. I think you can't have somebody like that there. I mean, it's going to kill your reputation. It's going to kill your fan base, especially as bad as COVID-19 hit New York. I mean, they had one of the biggest death tolls in the country. So I think they had to get him out of definitely Brooklyn for that reason. Now, Dallas might choose to bring him back at the end of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But I think, if he goes to a team, it's going to be a team that's kind of in a flyover state, almost like the Indianapolis Pacers, or somewhere that's not going to be as big on the vaccines, maybe Florida. It's going to have to be somewhere where your public outcry for vaccines is going to be limited, where his comments are going to be kind of overlooked, if not maybe a little bit more agreed with. I don't think it's to a point where he can't play in the NBA. More so, he just is going to. There's going to be places that.
Well, I'm not saying
play.
the vaccination makes him unplayable as on its own. So with
with
telling the fans, he basically told them off there. Does this still make Kyrie Irving playable?
It's hard to say. I mean, I guess if you're just going to have a team that is in desperate need of somebody like him. He's a big player. I mean, he does play well. So if you had somebody that was looking for, somebody that was a good player. I mean, he's definitely not had the best season. I mean, he's only had 36.9 or he's played 36.9 minutes on average, and only scored 27.1. And his career hasn't been that great. I mean, his career he's played 34.3 minutes per game per average, and only scored 23.4 points. So it's questionable to whether he is. I mean, he's an average 3-point shooter. He's a average. I mean, he's overall just an average player. So it might. I mean, you might get a team that just says a lot of teams might just say, we don't feel like dealing with somebody that's average at best, who's going to demand a bigger salary cap. And, he's 31. So, I mean, he's not a young gun anymore. It could hurt his chances to have hot takes like that, especially when he's had hot takes over the past 3 years with, the vaccine comments, with the comments about the fans. We can assume that the Brooklyn Nets just traded him because they needed the PR to be gone. So I mean, it's questionable. It really is, I think. But it's going to be in it. I mean, nobody can. That's the thing about sports. Nobody can say. I mean, the Nets might even look at bringing him back with Ben Simmons going down. I mean, you might need that just average player to come back and just be able to do something. It's going back to the Lakers. We said that they beat the Thunder and they tied the Timberwolves for a number 7 seed. So the Lakers and the Timberwolves are now tied for a number 7 seed. They're at 500 for the first time in 3 months. And big news coming out also there is 8-time All-Star Anthony Davis made NBA history as he moved up on the all-time scoring list. Davis came into the night with 15,605 points, ranked number 129. He needed 31 to move to ahead of Sam Cassell to 128. And if he continues to move up the pace, if he continues to move up the list, he jumped from 134 to 129 in Wednesday's game, in which they beat the Phoenix Suns 122 to 111. So that was a big game for the Lakers to outscore them. And then also, the Grizzlies have become kind of a Richmond hometown team with Desmond Bane been on the team. They beat the Rockets in blowout fashion, 151 to 114 to clinch a spot in the playoffs. Jara Mormont
Ja Morant.
Yes, Jorah Mormont is a character on Game of Thrones. I'm sorry. Totally messed that up. My bad. Ja Morant said that he is, that he's sorry for his actions and that he needs to be better. So that's good to see. He'll be back shortly. And then
he's already been back. So his first game back was March 22nd against the Rockets, and he came back, put up some pretty decent point stat line. 24 minutes, 17 points, 6 for 13 from the field. Didn't hit a three-pointer. He attempted 2 of those, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. He did have another game against the Rockets, 19 minutes, so a little 5 less minutes, 18 points, 8 for 12 from the field. Did hit a three-pointer, tried the same 2 attempts, 2 rebounds, 8 assists, no steals and a block. So he was able to get more involved in that game. Memphis actually does play the Hawks tonight. So they play at Atlanta tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Cool. And then also in this final basketball news, the Indianapolis Pacers got blown out by the Celtics, which is no surprise. The Celtics are arguably one of the best teams in the league at this moment. And the Pacers arguably one of the, well, not worst, but not great teams. They got beat 120-95. So, and that wraps up basketball for this week.
That's right. So we once again will go ahead, take a break. We'll come back again with a little bit of more of our baseball stuff. So again, we announced last couple weeks ago that we did start our new segment, Running the Bases. So me and Erik will be hosting that inside the Brendan Evans Show each week. We may be doing a little bit of a short segment next Monday from Great American Ballpark. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Again, you're watching the Brendan Evans Show right here live from Roscoe's Coffee Bar and Tap Room. Make sure you guys stay tuned in. We do have another big announcement towards the end of the show.
Hey, it's Erik LaFuse coming at you live from the FCast Studios with my partner in crime, Brendan Evans, and we got a great show for you tonight. Hang in there, we'll be right back.
Back here live at Roscoe's Coffee Bar and Tap Room, Brendan Evans Show. Brendan Evans alongside Erik LaFuse. So we will be starting our segment. Just to kind of get it introduced for us here real quick, we're going to go ahead and throw it over to someone from the Reds organization.
Hi, this is David Bell, manager of the Reds, and you are listening to Running the Bases with Brendan and Erik.
So that was David Bell, manager of the Cincinnati Reds. So we do have this segment, Running the Bases with Brendan and Erik. So we do have Erik, who is our baseball aficionado of the show here with us. So we will get into a little bit of baseball now. Just a reminder, we do have the Cincinnati Reds versus Cubs baseball game opening night next week. So the Brendan Evans Show, best place to get your Reds coverage. Make sure you guys stick around for that. And again, Erik, go ahead and kick us off with all of our baseball news.
Yeah, so I've been a Reds fan for about 30 years. So
it's depressing 30 years.
Yeah, so it's been rough. But, today I thought we'd do a little bit something different. We talked a lot about first opening day. We've talked a lot about like starting pitchers. We talked a lot about the division. But today I wanted to do a little bit something different, and I wanted to talk about some of the possible best bullpens in the league. For those of you that don't follow baseball, a bullpen is basically all your relief pitchers. At best, your starting pitcher can throw about 5 to 7 innings on a good night. Sometimes you do have pitchers that occasionally will go 8 or 9 and finish the game. It is uncommon, so it's important to have relief. relief pitchers and bullpens are one of the things that are probably one of the biggest breaking points of a baseball team that makes a baseball team good or bad. You definitely need good pitching on the back end to finish the game out. Something that the Reds haven't had in a long time because they can't get a lead to save their lives. As much as I love the Reds, it's just the truth. I'm just being honest. Coming in at number 1 on the projected top 10 bullpens of 2023 is the Astros. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding the Astros in the past couple of years, but you can't deny them. I mean, they have their bullpen and relief has an ERA, which is an earned run average of 2.8. That means that they give up about 2.8 games or 2.8 runs per game. They have a strikeout rate of 28.3%, and they have a left on base percentage of 76.8, which means that they strike out batters at a rate of 28%, and they, on average per game, they leave the bases with some traffic on them at least 76% of the time. They're bringing
76% of the time with somebody on base is huge.
Yes, that's huge. They're bringing everybody back. They have not let anybody go out of their bullpen. Some of their key arms are Ryan Presley, Rafael Montoro, Brian Abreu, Hector Neris, and Ryan Statnik. Montero and Neris allowed a combined 3 runs in 15 and third innings in the postseason. Presley and Abreu were both unscored on in 11 innings of work in the postseason, so that's huge. The entire pen allowed just 5 earned runs across 54 innings through October. So that's huge. Number 2 is the Padres. They have key arms like Josh Hader. He's always a presence. Robert Suarez, Luis Garcia, Tim Hill, Drew Pomeranz. Their featured pitchers are, of course, Josh Hader and Robert Suarez. That is a 1-2 punch that cannot be beaten. Hader was offered $102 million, which is a huge contract. Suarez is expected to start the season on the injured list with arm soreness, which is a big hit, of course. But he does have a 2.27 ER with 61 strikeouts and just 47 and 2/3 innings. So that's huge. The Braves are number 3, who have gotten the Reds' former closer in Raisel Iglesias, which I can't say enough how much I love Raisel Iglesias. One a really, really good closer. He'll be starting the season out on IL with shoulder issues, but he doesn't appear to have any structural damage. So he'll be back sometime after the beginning of the season. Some notable arms, of course, is Raisel, but then he also got A.J. Minter, Colin McHugh, and Jose Mendez, and Kirby Yates. Iglesias has a 2.55 ERA and a .94 WHIP, which is, I don't know. I just went blank.
Fair enough.
It happens to the best of us, man. There's a lot of stats in baseball.
Walks and hits per inning.
That's right. Thank you,
Per
Brendan.
inning pitched.
So yes, so that's a big deal there too. And Jimenez, he's another recent trade accusation. This will be his first full season since Tommy John surgery, so that's always just an interesting thing to see. Tommy John surgery, for those of us that aren't baseball fans, is where you're basically the 2 ligaments in your arm separate. It's very painful. However, I will say this, Bronson Arroyo, a former Reds pitcher, did pitch 8 games after needing Tommy John surgery, so that's huge and was probably very painful for him. I'm glad to see that Bronson's back in Cincinnati. Well, not on the team, but, playing music and stuff like that. Number 4 is the Guardians. So we won't go too much into some of these. I think we've talked a little bit enough We might go over a few of like the big ones. Number 5 is the Mariners. Number 6 is the Dodgers. Number 7 is the Phillies. And they, of course, have Gregory Soto, which is a big arm. The Rays have a good bullpen. And the Cardinals, of course, which I have said in the past, even though I don't like the Cardinals, they probably have a chance to lead the league and or at least lead the division between the Brewers and the Cardinals. I think our division will be in. And since they're in our division, we'll go a little bit more into them. They had a 21.2% strikeout rate, so that's pretty low. But that was in the 11th, and they ranked 11th in ERA, which was 3.61. So that's a really good earned run average there. Number 10, of course, is the Yankees, is always, but they have another former Red in Wandy Peralta, which he did a lot in Cincinnati for the Reds. Some other big news coming out of baseball right now is that Trevor Bauer will not play in the U.S. this year. He has been picked up by a team in Japan. Bauer, of course, was a former Red. He was pretty much blacklisted from the LA Dodgers, even though he wasn't convicted of anything. He had an alleged assault, but that never came to fruition. So, but honestly, he's a starting pitcher. In 2020, he pitched 11 games for the Reds, and then he pitched 17 games in 2021 for the Dodgers before he was pretty much blacklisted from baseball for something that never happened, apparently. I'm not there, wasn't there, so it's hard to say. But he was cut in January by the Los Angeles Dodgers, who still owe him $22.5 million, so he's still going to get paid. He was suspended. Yeah, but Trevor Bauer goes on to be one of my favorite pitchers in the Reds. He definitely has a good following of fans. He was accused of domestic violence allegations, but he was cleared of everything. He was never even charged with a crime, so that just goes to show. But really, that's honestly it for baseball. I mean, like I said, we have opening day coming up. Joey Votto's back playing. Nick Senzel's still out. The Reds have released several players, but they're just trying to get down to their 40-man roster. So we'll see what happens. For people that aren't baseball fans, you of course have 26 players that show up to the MLB stadium every game, but you only have you also have a backup of 14 players that you can call up from AAA. And then also, if you're interested, the Pittsburgh affiliate, the AAA Indianapolis Indians, are hosting opening night on Friday night in Indianapolis. So tickets were fairly cheap for that, and there seem to be a lot of them still. So it's a good place to go if you're looking for a ball game. I've heard it's really fun. I've never had the pleasure of going there for a game. And then the River Rats will, of course, kick off their season in June.
Jazz.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Jazz. It's the Jazz now. My bad. They'll kick off their season in June, which we may or may not cover, because I think some people that have been affiliated with the Brendan Evans show may have had not such a good relationship with the Jazz. we want to reiterate with the Brendan Evans show, we are totally independent. We have no affiliation with any other contractors or any other companies that may or may not cover similar situations. So just want to reiterate that we're not associated with anyone. Yeah, I'm sorry if I went too far in speaking about that. I apologize. But we probably, even if we don't, we'll still cover stats for the Jazz, and we will still talk about the Jazz, I'm sure, because they are a hometown team. So, and maybe even have a few giveaways for Jazz tickets in the future. The Indy Fuel, once again, have clinched the playoffs. And I know that's kind of transitioning over to hockey a little bit, which is currently going on and making a playoff run right now. So that's about it that's about all I had for running the bases. I just thought it would be fun to kind of cover the top bullpens, but I don't want to go, I figured we'd go into detail about the top 3, top 4, and then just kind of talk about the rest of them in just kind of a general sense because, I feel like the top 3 are probably pretty established, but, the rest of it can shift and change with injuries and stuff like that. So.
Right. Well, just to reiterate, this was Running the Bases with Brendan Evans. We'll go ahead and throw it over to someone else.
This is Corky Miller, and you're listening to Running the Bases with Brendan and Erik.
Running the Bases with Erik.
Well, that was Corky Miller. Again, want to thank him once again for being willing enough to put a plug in there for us. We definitely do appreciate it. So we will go ahead and move on with the show. Go ahead with a little bit more of what we talked about. Don't have too much hockey today. So we do want to mention that Connor McDavid focused on the Oilers' push for playoffs. So the Edmonton Oilers captain does only need 10 goals in their final 9 games to reach a huge milestone of 70 goals in the same season, saying nothing's impossible, but he's also not focusing on that as well. So Connor McDavid has 61 goals right now, 9 games left. He has 60 goals now, 9 games left to get to that 70 mark, but he's really not focused on it. Other news in NHL, Penguins are having trouble closing out third period, allows 3 goals in third, luckily. Evgeny Malkin was able to score a 4th goal to win the game and pick up 2 points to go towards team's overall season points, bringing them closer to the playoffs. Before allowing the 3 goals in the third period, Casey DeSmith was playing arguably the best game of his career with big save after big save. Both the Islanders and Panthers lost.
And I just want to clarify something. Connor McDavid, 10 goals doesn't sound like a whole lot in 9 games. That's a goal a game, and hockey is a 60-minute game. But you also have to think that you're sharing the ice with 2 other lines, so at least 2 other players at a time. So on average, he gets about 22 minutes and 38 seconds on ice per game.
Assuming there's no long shifts or anything as well. So that's just on average what they would share if it was split evenly between all 3.
Right, and that doesn't count. That 22 minutes also counts for defense time too. So, if you obviously you have 2 defenders, but you kind of have to, as an offensive player, you do have to play, both defense and offense sometimes. Just it's part of the game. So, even then you could probably cut that down to, an average of 15 minutes per game on offense, shooting at the net. And that's you still have to get it and shoot it. So I just wanted to point out how difficult 10 points could really be in hockey. It's not as easy. It's not easy to say that he, 9 games he could score an average of 1 goal per game. It might, that could be a pretty big impossibility. So that's probably, that's why it's such a big deal. Also want to point out that DeSmith was the goalie that was in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He was the 3rd-string goalie for the Penguins last year that played very well until the last couple games of the series, which stuff happens. You can't block every shot.
So really quick, that's all we had for hockey. Like I said, not too much of hockey stuff going on right now. We will bring in some more hockey stuff next week with us as well. We did mention a little bit last week the Josh Williams situation. He got upset because something fell off of his car, extended the caution, some debris flying off. He parked his car on the start-finish line. So due to that, he was suspended for a behavior penalty of 1 week. And then also worth mentioning, everyone's kind of finding some positive light about this. Bristol Motor Speedway posted a picture of, first of all, the dirt track was kind of cool to see up at Bristol already. That's next week at Bristol. So NASCAR's going back dirt once again. But they did post a picture of a sign on their social media page that said Josh Williams reserved parking on the start-finish line. So that was pretty cool to see that even someone as big as Bristol Motor Speedway is making light of the situation as well.
Yeah, and then also just a few things. You have a NASCAR Hall of Famer and Dale Earnhardt Jr. coming out and commented on the Josh Williams incident. He said he was asked if banning the 29-year-old for a week would be the right thing to do. Dale Earnhardt Jr. said, I feel that, and I quote, I feel that's probably likely a fair penalty for something like that. However, Eddie D. Hond, the spotter for Chase Elliott, had a little bit different of a viewpoint. He said that Josh Williams purposely parked his car at the start-finish line and leave it, thus delaying the race for an extended period of time, is wrong on so many levels. Even when we don't agree with them, or at NASCAR, if we don't agree with them, is to be respected at all times. The inmates don't run the asylum. He got off easy. If you don't, well, and he said, unfollow me. Pretty much meaning if you don't like it, if you don't like my take, unfollow me. So two different comments, one coming from a driver and one coming from a spotter. I do feel like Dale Earnhardt Jr. would probably be a little bit more likely to kind of identify with the frustration that Josh Williams felt over Eddie D. Hond, a spotter. A spotter probably would take it more serious because it's his job to, I'm sure that made his job that much harder to be like, oh, hey, there's a car parked on the start-finish line in the middle of the racetrack. Watch out. And I've talked to people that race cars, and one of the things they always say is that your line of sight is restricted. I had a friend who was involved in sprint cars who knows Tony Stewart personally, and we had talked in length about when Tony Stewart had supposedly hit the kid on the racetrack during a dirt track race, and one of the things he had mentioned was that it is very tough to see out your window, especially when it's covered with mud and dirt, but it's also the fact that you just have such a range of view that it's hard to see what's coming on your left and right. So, obviously the spotters have a tough job. They play a critical role for NASCAR drivers, so I'm sure for him it was much more frustrating. On the other hand, Dale Earnhardt Jr. has had experience with NASCAR and driving and has probably felt what it feels like to get black flagged by NASCAR for something like this, or to get, penalized by NASCAR for something like this in his career.
It's just silly.
I mean, it's something that, they have
something that
obviously
he
has to be
cannot
punished.
control. When you decide to have a race, when you decide to start your NASCAR season this early in the year, and then get mad at racers and penalize racers for equipment that is approved to be on their vehicle or repair things that need to be used to repair vehicles is approved by NASCAR, but stuff that does not work once it gets below a certain temperature, it doesn't stick as well. So it's just silly. You either need to get better tools that need to be approved by NASCAR to be repairable, or you just deal with the fact that, hey, you're already in caution, something else fell off in caution. Deal with it, move on with the race. I don't think it was fair to penalize him for it. But, I also don't think it was right of him to park his car on the finish line. I thought it was hilarious. But at the same time, NASCAR has to do what they have to do in that situation.
Yeah, I agree that it was very it was, from a professional racing point of view, it was definitely not a professional thing to do for him to park his car on the start-finish line and just leave it. It endangered fellow drivers, it endangered himself, and it could have even endangered people in the audience at certain levels. However, I can understand the frustration of being told to park your car because, which is basically the same thing as a black flag, but we're not allowed to call it black flag anymore, I guess. But it's essentially the same thing. But anyways, instead of having to park your car and just because something fell off your car after it was taped back on, or because, something that is meant to be used in that case because it's too cold fell off. I totally agree with that. Moving on, he was replaced by Alex Labe, I guess. I'm sorry if I said his name wrong. He placed 15th at the Circuit America track. On Saturday, the race was ultimately won by A.J. Allemander in downtown Austin. That was yesterday, yes, sir. Kind of just want to, I talked about the black flag in NASCAR, and I just wanted to, I don't know, I guess we don't, I never knew, I don't pay enough attention to NASCAR, I guess, but I wanted to see what the difference between black flagging was and parking your car was.
So parking your car is more of a penalty. Black flag is you're done with the race, go put it in the garage.
So, yeah, it's a tip.
Long story short.
So I just did a quick Google search, and this is what it essentially says to back up Brendan's point. Typically, directed toward a particular driver who NASCAR officials or scores have determined has committed an on-track offense or cannot maintain a consistent and competitive speed to continue the race and must leave the racing surface and return to the pit area immediately. So I guess it's more if you did something wrong or if your car's unable to keep pace. So just that's interesting to me. I guess I just never knew. I didn't know if we had stopped using black flag, like if black flag was a term they just weren't using anymore, or.
Yeah, so at that point, it was just a penalty where he had to park his car. I guess he did not want to park his car, so he parked it somewhere where NASCAR was not happy with. At that point, it was considered a black flag, but once you get out of your car, it needs to be towed. You're done anyways. So if you have to get out of your car for any reason other than a delay, so like a red flag, you will be done for the day just because you did have to get out. Unless you're like exchanging drivers or something, which has to be done in the pit area.
Yeah. So just interesting. I didn't know what that meant. I was curious. What happened to the black flag. I've always heard the black flag tournament, so I just figured, and I figured maybe somebody else would be interested in that too. And Brendan, fortunately for us, Brendan knew exactly what it meant, so that was awesome. I guess that's why it's called the Brendan Evans Show. So just moving, so that concludes pretty much all our information for the show. We do have some big news to share. This is Erik, of course. I'm going to go ahead and just tell you a little bit about what's going on. Next week, we have, of course, WrestleMania weekend. We're going to try a little something different and talking about wrestling and what's going on that weekend. We're also going to have a little bit different of a schedule because me and Brendan both have some okay.
So we're not 100% sure on what the schedule is going to be yet. We will announce that. Make sure you guys stay tuned on our social medias, our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll make sure we get everything up on those for the exact dates and times. The one for sure is going to be Monday. We will make sure that we get a video up while we're at the ballpark. So make sure you guys tune in. We'll have a little bit of a contest while we're there. So make sure you guys stay tuned in for that, and then we'll go from there, of course.
Yeah, and then we also hope to have some special guests on the show coming up if their schedules allow it. So it should be a really interesting week. We're also going to cover next Sunday. We'll have some coverage of the opening week of baseball. Talk a little bit about the Reds. And maybe hopefully some of the other teams that are in the division. But stick around, and it should be an interesting week coming up.
Right. So, again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was the Brendan Evans Show. Definitely appreciate you guys tuning in each week. We will be back We will be back with a show next week. Make sure you guys stay tuned on our social medias for that, and we'll catch you guys later. Thanks again.